Across the galaxy, human battleship the council meeting was taking place. Its shape cast a grand gathering of representatives from countless alien species. The fleet of alien ships, with once confident and proud, was as different from the other small and fragile in comparison. Some were peaceful, the human ship, some were warriors, enigma, and some were just trying to survive and silent. But no matter how different they were, through the void like a predator. They had learned to coexist, engines glowing faintly with a power mutual respect to hum with most potential destruction. A shared interest. Captain Alana's hands were steady on the console. The council chamber is a vast space in the heart of the galaxy. She had never expected chattering voices. Representatives from all over the galaxy were discussing the aliens who had come to investigate a simple distress signal were now face to face, and the occasional ship that could easily destroy them all. This was routine work. We are not prepared. Things had always been calm, Grick said, and no one had expected anything unusual. Trembling slightly as he looked at the ship's strange figure. A distress signal officer appeared on the central console, but there was fear. It wasn't a normal distress signal. This is unlike anything we've seen. There was something odd. Alana about its origins were unknown. She too felt the cold grip of fear settling. Yet it was clear enough to make out the most important human ship had no visible weapons. It came from a system that had never been readiness for battle. System at the very edge of the galaxy. The sheer size and strength of it were more than enough to make anyone pause. A low murmur ran through the chamber. Stay calm, Alana said, trying to regain control. Who could this signal be from? What kind of civilization lived on the edge of the galaxy? To start a fight. I suggest we send an exploratory fleet, said the representative, sending a message to the human species known. This is Captain Alana wisdom and knowledge of the Tri-Alliance fleet. They were calm. We've come in response to a distress curiosity. We mean no harm and seek it could be another race in need of assistance. Please respond. Others agreed. There was a long pause. The unknown was always a place for opportunity. She stared at the screen, her heart racing. It wasn't uncommon for new species to reach out for help, to ask for protection or guidance. Just as the tension in the room reached a boiling point, the screen flickered. Then the representative from the Zarkon, a new message appeared. Species, not from the human ship itself, powerful and militaristic from a single figure, spoke up. A human captain. His voice was speaking directly to her. This is Captain Jonathan West of the USS Victory. What if this is a trap? What if the voice crackled through the speakers? Strong and be cautious. A fleet of warships should be sent. I suggest you stay back and do not approach any closer. His words sent a chill through the chamber. Blinked in disbelief. Some nodded in agreement. The human captain's tone was known for their aggressive stance on things, but it was confident, almost challenging. A peaceful mission, not a warship. You received our distress signal. What the situation called for? Trying to keep her voice steady. I disagree. Came to offer, said the leader of the Tyrians. I didn't send a distress signal known for their diplomacy. Replied, his voice cold. The signal is a plea for help. If you came to help, this is a chance to make contact with an unknown race. We don't need your help. Guide us, and we certainly don't need you. After more back and forth arguments, it was decided that a small fleet of various ships would be sent to investigate. This was not what she had expected. A mix of peaceful explorers, military representatives, and help, and diplomats were telling them to leave. Would form a team. This wasn't just a misunderstanding was made. It was an outright warning. The council wanted to reach out and help. We're not here to fight, assuming the best of intentions. Trying to reason with the human captain. But they didn't want to ignore the potential danger. We're only trying to help. Please allow us to assist you. The fleet was assembled, and the message was sent. Help. They would go to the edge of the galaxy and answer the call. I've said enough. Don't try to approach. Zarkon representative was not pleased, but there was little before Alana could respond. The council communication cut off. The screen went black, prepared for departure. The cold silence returned to the room. But none of the ships, uncertain looks, none of the commanders, unsure of how to possibly know what awaited them. The human ship was still there, hovering in the void, at the edge of the galaxy. Unmistakable. The stars looked different. We can't just leave. Space here was darker, Grick said, quieter, his voice low. The peaceful hum of the galactic. We've come this far, and they haven't even explained themselves. What if they're hiding something toward the unknown system? What if they're a threat to the galaxy? Empty stretches of space. Trying to collect None of the ships had seen anything like this. She knew this wasn't the way they had planned. The first ship to reach the system was the lead vessel. Everything the ship representing gone wrong. The peaceful exploration. They had expected to meet an unknown race in need of help. A veteran not an aggressive and secretive enemy stood at the command center. We'll follow fingers moving across the smooth console. We've reached the coordinates. We'll attempt to make contact again, but we won't be reckless. Every officer. We need to show. His voice was calm, peaceful, but his eyes were. Alana ordered a second attempt to communicate with the human ship. There's no sign of any other ships nearby. She decided to take a different approach, looking at the vast emptiness. She wasn't going to beg or plead. If the humans were nothing out this hostile, just an endless stretch of space, there was no point in offering help anymore. Send out a communication to know if the humans were a threat to their survival. Let's see what's really out there. The screen flickered once more as the message was sent. Sending Captain West. Alana's voice rang out, clear and strong. This is your last warning. If you refuse all offers of communication and cooperation, we will have no choice but to take defensive action. Disappointed. Do not want conflict. Just as Alana was about to speak. Defend ourselves if necessary. Alana waited. A message. Watching the screen. It wasn't a distress signal. It wasn't even a reply to the probe. It was something else. The crew held their breath. Then the human ship responded. Untraceable transmission appeared on the screen. But it wasn't with words. A series of symbols. A brilliant burst of light of characters exploded from the human battleship. Could translate. Blinding the alien fleet for a moment. The message was unlike any communication through the ship shaking before. It wasn't hostile. The shockwave rattled the alien vessels, knocking some of them off course. The unknown symbols danced on the screen. Shields up, Alana shouted. What is this? The alien ship scrambled to adjust their defenses, Alana said, rubbing her chin thoughtfully. Happened, but it's something. Was this some kind of warning shot? Another blast followed. Without waiting, more controlled, Alana instructed the crew enough to begin analyzing the trembles, hoping to decipher their meaning. The human ship unleashed yet another series of bursts. The alien fleet around her waited in tense silence as the crew worked. After what felt like hours, filled with alarm, a breakthrough came. No, the symbols began to form a rough translation. Her voice trembling with realization. Lieutenant Grick said, "They're testing reading us from the console. They're showing us what they're capable of." This message. It's not Captain West's voice returned to the comms. A warning. This time it was colder than flashed on the screen, leaving you had your warning, he said. And before they could process the meaning of the message, you should have left when you had. It was too late. Chance. Now you'll see what happens when you refuse to listen. A massive shape appeared. The alien fleet wasn't a fleet. Humans hadn't outright attacked yet. It was a single, enormous ship. The message was clear. It seemed to come out of nowhere. If the aliens persisted, it would face the full wrath of humanity. Its shape was unlike any no longer just a mysterious force. Dark a weapon one, the alien fleet had no chance of matching. Surface covered with strange markings. Alana stared at the screen. The human battleship had arrived. Her mind racing. Alana stared. What had she gotten her fleet into? Her heart pounding. What were they supposed to do now? Rumors about the humans' warships, but no one had prepared her for the reality. We're out of our league. The battleship seemed to loom in front of them, its powerful engines glowing faintly in the darkness. This is impossible, Grick whispered, eyes wide with shock. We didn't know they had ships like this. The humans didn't respond immediately. The massive battleship hovered, waiting, watching in that moment. Every single alien ship in the fleet realized they had underestimated the humans, and they began to regret it. The massive human battleship floated in space, its shape casting an ominous shadow against the backdrop of the distant stars. The fleet of alien ships, once confident and proud, now seemed small and fragile in comparison. The human ship was an enigma large, dark, and silent. It moved through the void like a predator, its engines glowing faintly with a power that seemed to hum with potential destruction. Captain Alana's hands were steady on the console, but her mind raced. She had never expected something like this. No one had. The aliens who had come to investigate a simple distress signal were now face to face with a ship that could easily destroy them all. "We are not prepared for this," Grick said, his voice trembling slightly as he looked at the ship's looming figure. The VIR officer was usually calm, but there was fear in his eyes now. "This is unlike anything we've seen." Alana nodded, though she too felt the cold grip of fear settling. In her chest, the human ship had no visible weapons, no obvious signs of readiness for battle, but it didn't need to. The sheer size and strength of it were more than enough to make anyone pause. "Stay calm," Alana said, trying to regain control of the situation. "We'll try to communicate first. No need to start a fight." Grick activated the communication console, sending a message to the human ship. "This is Captain Alana of the Tri-Alliance fleet. We've come in response to a distress signal. We mean no harm and seek only to assist you. Please respond." There was a long pause, longer than Alana would have liked. She stared at the screen, her heart racing. Had the humans even received the message? Were they going to respond at all? Just as the tension in the room reached a boiling point, the screen flickered. A new message appeared, not from the human ship itself, but from a single figure. A human captain, speaking directly to her. "This is Captain Jonathan West, of the USS Victory." The voice crackled through the speakers, strong and calm. "I'm aware of your presence. I suggest you stay back and do not approach any closer." Alana blinked in disbelief. The human captain's tone was not one of fear or confusion. It was confident, almost challenging. "You received our distress signal," Alana said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We came to offer assistance." "I didn't send a distress signal," West replied, his voice cold and unwavering. "If you came to help, then I suggest you leave. We don't need your help, and we certainly don't need you getting in the way." The silence that followed was deafening. Alana's heart sank. This was not what she had expected. Humans. Instead of reaching out for help, We're telling them to leave." This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was an outright warning. "We're not here to fight," Alana said, trying to reason with the human captain. "We're only trying to help. Please allow us to assist you. We don't need anyone's help." Captain West's voice cut through the air again. "I've said enough. Don't try to approach. Stay out of our way." Before Alana could respond, the communication cut off. The screen went black, and the cold silence returned to the room. The crew exchanged uncertain looks, unsure of how to proceed. The human ship was still there, hovering in the void, its presence unmistakable. "We can't just leave," Grick said, his voice low. "We've come this far, and they haven't even explained themselves. What if they're hiding something dangerous? What if they're a threat to the galaxy?" Captain Alana stood up, trying to collect her thoughts. She knew this wasn't the way they had planned to make contact with a new species. Everything had gone wrong. They had expected to meet an unknown race in need of help, not an aggressive and secretive enemy. "We'll follow protocol," Alana said firmly. "We'll attempt to make contact again, but we won't be reckless. We need to show them we're peaceful." Alana ordered a second attempt to communicate with the human ship. This time, however, she decided to take a different approach. She wasn't going to beg or plead. If the humans were truly this hostile, there was no point in offering help anymore. The fleet needed to know if the humans were a threat to their survival. The screen flickered once more as the message was sent. Captain West Alana's voice rang out, clear and strong. "This is your last warning. If you refuse all offers of communication and cooperation, we will have no choice but to take defensive action. We do not want conflict, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Alana waited, watching the screen intently. The seconds dragged on. The crew held their breath, then the human ship responded. But it wasn't with words. A brilliant burst of light exploded from the human battleship, blinding the alien fleet for a moment. The force of the blast sent ripples through the ships, shaking them. The shockwave rattled the alien vessels, knocking some of them off course. "Shields up," Alana shouted. The alien ships scrambled to adjust their defenses. What had just happened? Was this some kind of warning shot? Another blast followed, this one more controlled, though still powerful enough to make the alien ships tremble. Alana watched in disbelief as the human ship unleashed yet another series of bursts. "They're attacking," Grick shouted, his voice filled with alarm. "No," Alana said, her voice trembling with realization. "They're testing us. They're showing us what they're capable of." Captain West's voice returned to the comms. This time it was colder than ever. "You had your warning," he said, his tone calm. "You should have left when you had the chance. Now you'll see what happens when you refuse to listen." The alien fleet was in disarray. Humans hadn't outright attacked yet, but they had shown their power. The message was clear. If the aliens persisted, it would face the full wrath of humanity. The human ship was no longer just a mysterious force. It was a weapon one the alien fleet had no chance of matching. Alana stared at the screen in shock, her mind racing. What had she gotten her fleet into? What were they supposed to do now? Grick, his voice now a whisper, spoke what everyone was thinking. "We're out of our league." The shockwaves from the human battleship's earlier blasts still rippled through the alien fleet. The ships, once confident in their advanced technology and battle-ready weapons, now found themselves on edge. The human ship, calm and imposing, was clearly a force to be reckoned with. The aliens hadn't even seen its full power yet, but they could feel the weight of what was being held back. Captain Alana stood on the command deck, her heart pounding in her chest. Her mind raced with the consequences of what had just occurred. The human ship had proven its strength, and now the alien fleet was facing an unexpected dilemma. What were they supposed to do next? Captain Grick said, his voice tense. "They haven't stopped firing. Their blasts are hitting our shields, but not penetrating. It's clear they could destroy us if they wanted to." Alana nodded grimly. She had seen enough to know that the humans weren't just making threats, they were testing their limits. They could take out the entire fleet if they chose to, but they hadn't gone that far yet. "We need to get answers," Alana said firmly. "I'll try one more time. We need to understand who we're dealing with." Grick looked uneasy, but he didn't argue. He knew that the situation had gone beyond simple diplomacy. Now, it was about survival. The message was sent again, this time with a different tone. "Captain West," Alana said, her voice steady but filled with authority. "This is your final chance. If you want peace, we can still negotiate. But if you continue to show hostility, we will be forced to defend ourselves. We don't want to fight you, but we will if we have to." There was no immediate response. For a long moment, nothing happened. The silence in the command deck was deafening. The crew could feel the weight of the moment, the tension that hung in the air. Then, just as Alana was about to speak again, the screen flickered to life. The human captain's face appeared on the monitor, its expression as cold as ever. "This is your final warning, Captain Alana." Captain West's voice came through, smooth but harsh. "We didn't ask for your help, and we sure as hell don't need it. You should have turned around when you had the chance. Now you've seen what we can do. Don't make me show you more." Lana's stomach twisted. The words were blunt, and they weren't what she expected. The human captain didn't seem afraid. In fact, he sounded almost bored. "We are not here to fight," Alana replied, struggling to keep her voice calm. "We came to offer help. But if you insist on rejecting us, we will not hesitate to defend ourselves. This is your last chance. Stand down now." For a moment, there was silence. Then the screen shifted, and the human captain spoke again, his voice lower this time, but just as firm. "I've seen how your fleet operates. You're not the first to try to invade our space, and you won't be the last. But you're the first to get this close and live to regret it." The words sent a chill down Alana's spine. The human captain wasn't just speaking to her as a military commander, he was speaking as someone who had dealt with invaders before. Someone who had learned the hard way to never back down. The human battleship seemed to move slightly, its massive form shifting in the distance. It wasn't a threatening movement, but it was a reminder of its power. Lana couldn't help but feel small in comparison. Captain West continued, his voice now colder than before. "You think we're weak just because we didn't ask for help? You think we're just another species to be played with, but you've made a mistake. We're not like the others. We don't need anyone's help, and we certainly don't need to prove ourselves to anyone." The message hit like a hammer. The human ship wasn't just a warning, they were telling the fleet exactly what they thought of them. The aliens had underestimated humanity. The mistake was theirs, and now they had to face the consequences. Alana swallowed hard. She had expected resistance, but not like this. The humans weren't just defending their territory, they were showing that they didn't need anyone. They had no interest in joining the council or making alliances. They were in a league of their own. "We don't want to fight." Alana repeated, this time more softly, but her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The human ship, it seemed, was only interested in one thing: keeping its distance from the rest of the galaxy. Suddenly, the human ship's engines roared to life, and a deep, low rumble echoed through the command deck. It was subtle but unmistakable. The human battleship was preparing for something. A new wave of tension washed over the fleet. Captain Grick said urgently, "They're moving." There, before he could finish, the human ship opened fire once again, this time with precision. The energy beams shot across the space, directly targeting the lead alien vessel. The first strike was a blast of energy so strong that it made the alien shields flare up like a shield protecting a fragile glass bubble. The force of the blast sent the alien ship back, its engines groaning in protest as they tried to regain control. The aliens were stunned. The human ship had just shown them that they could break through their shields. The power of the attack had knocked the alien fleet back, but it was still contained within their defensive systems. That didn't change the fact that the humans had proven their point. They were not afraid. "Captain, we have to retreat," Grick shouted, his voice panicked. "We can't keep taking hits like that. We'll be wiped out in seconds." But Alana hesitated. She couldn't believe it. This wasn't what they had expected. A peaceful encounter, a chance to make contact with a new species. But now it was a test of survival. The human ship had shown no interest in diplomacy, no interest in compromise. They were alone in this, facing a species that had no intention. of playing by anyone else's rules. Prepare to take evasive action, Alana ordered, her voice steady, despite the rising panic within her. We're not retreating just yet. We need to learn more about this ship. If we can't stop it, we'll have to find another way. The fleet adjusted their position, but the human battleship was already moving again. It didn't seem to care how many ships the aliens had. It didn't care how big or powerful the fleet was. All it cared about was that the aliens had made a mistake by coming too close. The human ship moved again, its weapons silently humming with deadly force. And once again, the aliens were forced to realize that the human battleship wasn't just a warship. It was something much more, something they were completely unprepared for. The massive human battleship loomed in space, its dark form like a shadow over the alien fleet. Despite the distance, the power it radiated could be felt in every corner of the alien vessels. The crew members were quiet, their nerves on edge, waiting for the next move. The previous energy blasts had made it clear that the human ship was more than just a powerful warship. It was a force that could crush anything in its path. Captain Alana stood still, her mind racing. Her thoughts were clouded by uncertainty. The situation had quickly escalated from a peaceful mission to an urgent fight for survival. It felt like everything had gone wrong. We've underestimated them, Grick said, his voice tight. His normally calm demeanor had shattered after the last attack. He was not the only one feeling the pressure. The entire fleet was on high alert, ready to respond but unsure of how to face such overwhelming force. Alana stared out at the human battleship, her hands resting on the console in front of her. The ship seemed almost alive, its engines humming, faintly as though it were ready to strike again. The earlier blasts had rattled her, but now the reality had set in. The aliens had entered the humans' territory without understanding what they were up against. Now they were paying the price for their arrogance. We need to retreat, Grick said again, his voice urgent. We can't keep this up. Their weapons are too powerful. We're outmatched. Lana knew he was right. The human ship had shown them enough to make it clear that it could destroy their entire fleet. But retreating would be an admission of defeat. They couldn't let the galaxy see the Tri-Alliance fleet, the great defenders of peace, run from a human ship. We won't run, Alana said, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. We need to hold our ground. We can't back down. She turned to the rest of her crew. Prepare the weapons. We're going to show them we're not afraid. I don't care how powerful their ship is. If we're going to go down, we'll go down fighting. The alien fleet, now in formation, began to adjust its weapons and shields. The crew members worked quickly, preparing for what they knew was going to be a battle they might not survive. They had no choice but to face the human ship head-on. But just as they finished readying themselves, a new message appeared on the screen. It was a transmission from Captain West, but it wasn't a threat or an attack. It was a warning. This is your last chance? West's voice came through, calm and direct. You've seen what we're capable of. Now, I suggest you leave while you still can. The galaxy will remember what happens next. Lana's stomach twisted. There was something chilling in the way Captain West spoke. The humans weren't just protecting their territory, they were sending a message. A message that said they were untouchable, unstoppable. The alien fleet, which had once been proud and powerful, now found itself on the defensive. The humans had made their point. They were not here to negotiate. They were here to protect what was theirs, and if anyone crossed that line, they would be punished. We can't fight them, Grick said, his voice quieter now. It's clear they're not afraid of us. Lana didn't respond right away. She wanted to argue, to push back, but deep down she knew he was right. The humans had shown no hesitation, no fear. They weren't interested in a peaceful solution, and they were strong enough to back up their words. The Tri-Alliance fleet, for all its strength and pride, was no match for the human battleship. The fleet held its position, unsure of what to do next. The humans had made their power known, and now they were waiting for a response. We have no choice, Lana said finally, her voice heavy with the weight of her decision. We need to show them we are not weak. We will fight. Turned to the weapons console and gave the order. The alien fleet opened fire, unleashing a barrage of energy beams toward the human ship. The beams streaked through space, faster than light itself, but the human ship didn't move. It just waited, hovering in the distance, its massive form. Untouched by the barrage, the energy beams slammed into the human ship's shields. But instead of being deflected, they seemed to disappear upon impact. The human ship's shields absorbed the attacks without even flinching. It was as if the alien weapons were nothing more than raindrops hitting a steel wall. Alana watched in disbelief as the alien fleet's attacks were completely useless. The human ship wasn't just stronger, it was nearly invulnerable. And then, without warning, the human ship retaliated. A single beam shot out from the massive vessel, slicing through the void of space. The energy was so concentrated and powerful that it cut through the shields of one of the alien ships like a hot knife through butter. The ship exploded in a burst of light and energy, its remains floating in space. The shock of the attack was felt across the entire fleet. The remaining alien ships scrambled to regain their composure, but it was too late. The humans had already made their move. They were no longer just defending themselves, they were attacking. The human ship fired. Again, and this time it wasn't just one ship that was destroyed, it was two. The alien fleet, once so powerful, now found itself crumbling under the might of the human battleship. Remaining ships tried to break formation and flee, but the human ship was faster, more precise. It tracked them effortlessly, its energy, beams reducing the fleeing ships to nothing more than smoldering wreckage. Alana's heart pounded in her chest as she watched her fleet being destroyed, one ship at a time. There was nothing they could do to stop it. Humans had outmatched them in every way. Their weapons, their speed, their sheer power. It was all too much. And then, just as quickly as the destruction had started, it stopped. The human ship powered down its weapons, leaving the remaining alien ships intact but battered. "This is your final warning." Captain Wes's voice came through again, colder than before. "Leave now, or you won't be so lucky next time." Alana stood motionless, her mind still reeling from what had just happened.
Oh.
The fleet was in chaos, but they were alive. For now, but one thing was certain. The humans had made their point, and they would not hesitate to finish what they started. The alien fleet, now severely weakened, began to retreat. They knew they had been beaten, not just by a ship, but by a species they had underestimated. The humans had shown them what they were capable of, and now the galaxy would remember. As the fleet turned away, Alana's heart sank. They had come to help, but instead, they had learned a lesson they would never forget. The retreat was slow, with the remaining alien ships drifting back from the human battleship, their hulls scarred and battered from the previous attack. The fleet had been reduced to half its original size, with some ships crippled and others destroyed. Captain Alana stood on the bridge watching the damaged vessels as they moved away, their lights flickering in the cold expanse of space. She could hardly believe what had just happened. The alien fleet, so powerful and proud just hours ago, had been humbled by the unexpected force of humanity. "We're alive," Crick said, his voice almost a whisper, as if he couldn't fully comprehend the situation, but barely. Alana didn't respond. She couldn't find the words. Her mind kept replaying the destruction of the ships, the way the human battleship had wiped them out with terrifying precision. The message from Captain West was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated, Captain. "We've lost contact with several of the ships," Grick added, pulling Alana out of her thoughts. "We're down to just a few vessels now." Alana looked over at the tactical console, her fingers twitching with the desire to take control of the situation. But there was nothing she could do. The human ship had made sure of that. "We need to regroup," Alana said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "The surviving ships need to find each other. We need to send out a distress signal and get help. Can't let this go unanswered." Grick nodded slowly, but didn't speak. What could they do? The humans had proven that they could defend themselves without breaking a sweat. How could the Tri-Alliance, with its many species and alliances, ever hope to challenge that kind of power? Captain Grick said after a moment, his tone hesitant. "Do you think we made a mistake, underestimating them?" "Heck. We thought we were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Lana turned toward him. There was no anger in his voice, just a quiet realization. It wasn't just a mistake, Grick, she said, her voice filled with frustration. It was arrogance. We assumed we were the strongest. We assumed that no one could surpass us. Humanity has proven that assumption wrong. And now we have to live with the consequences. She stared at the screen, still showing the image of the human battleship, now a mirror in the distance. Her mind was spinning. But one thing was clear. Humanity had not only defeated them, they had changed everything. Balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and the Tri-Alliance had to face that uncomfortable truth. Meanwhile, far away in the heart of the galaxy, Captain Jonathan West stood on the bridge of the USS Victory, his expression unreadable as he watched the retreating alien fleet. The battle was over, and they had won, but the war wasn't. Not yet. His crew was tense, their eyes darting between the controls and the view screen. They had just faced the full force of a powerful fleet, and they had won with ease. But there was no celebration. Captain West knew that this victory wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The galaxy would remember this day, but they would also come for humanity. They would want answers. They would want to understand why humanity had attacked, why they had chosen to fight back. He turned to his first officer, Lieutenant Reynolds, who had been silently observing the scene. "Are you sure we made the right decision?" West asked quietly. "We could have destroyed them, but I didn't want that." Reynolds looked at him, his face expressionless. "You made the right choice." "Captain, they didn't listen. They had their chance." West nodded, his eyes narrowing. "Yes, but now we'll have to deal with the fallout. The galaxy isn't going to ignore us forever. We've shown them that we can fight. And now, we have to be ready for whatever comes next." Reynolds remained silent, his hands steady on the control panel. The quiet tension on the bridge reflected the uncertainty that had settled in their minds. They had just made history. But history had a way of coming back to haunt those who made it. Back in the command center of the Tri-Alliance fleet, Alana and her crew worked tirelessly to stabilize the remaining ships. The damage had been extensive, but they had managed to save a few. The survivors were shaken, but alive. Alana sent out a distress signal, hoping against hope that help would arrive. She knew it was a long shot, but it was the only option they had left. Captain Grick said, his voice quiet, "I've been looking over the damage reports. We've lost too much. It can't continue like this." "I know," Alana replied. She could hear the defeat in his voice, but she couldn't afford to show any weakness now. "We'll regroup, and we'll find a way to move forward. The humans may have shown us their strength, but that doesn't mean we're out of the fight." "We're alive," Grick said, his voice softer now. "But we're not the same anymore. We've seen what humans are capable of. We've seen their power." Alana didn't answer at first. She understood what he was saying. The Tri-Alliance had always prided itself on being the most advanced and powerful in the galaxy. But the humans had proven that power wasn't just about technology or weapons. It was about willpower, confidence, and knowing when to act. "We'll have to change," Alana said finally. "We'll have to adapt. Can't keep thinking we're invincible. The humans taught us that." Grick nodded in agreement. "But how do we face them? How do we even begin to understand a species that strong?" "We'll find a way," Alana said, though she wasn't entirely sure how. The humans had shown them something they hadn't understood before. Real strength. The kind of strength that didn't need to prove itself to anyone. The kind of strength that could silence an entire fleet without firing a single destructive shot. For the first time in her life, Lana felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. They had been humbled. They had been shown their place in the galaxy. And now, they had to figure out how to move forward. As the remaining alien ships moved into formation, ready to head back to their home systems, Alana stood at the front of the bridge, staring out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had just made its presence known. The Tri-Alliance was no longer the galaxy's dominant force. The humans had proved that they were a power to be reckoned with, and now, every species in the galaxy would have to consider that fact when they made their next move.